starting now?
Yes.
Oh.
Who am I here with?
TJ Griffin, the writer for Dreamscape.
Okay. And then who's sitting to my right?
Brayden LaRoche, the illustrator of Dreamscape.
All right. And my name is Trepidatious Bogart, and I make the music for Dreamscape, and I'm also recording this podcast. I guess the name is kind of a work in progress, but right now I'm just going to title it Peek into Dreamscape. It's going to be the first one that we record, and we're going to try and get these out at a pretty steady pace over the summer. So this one, we're just going to dive into the people who are making it and kind of what inspired it, and then for the next couple of episodes, we'll go deeper into like the plot, what we aim to do with the series, and the creative process behind it. Okay, so I want to start it off with Brayden, actually. So Brayden, who are you? What do you do for this? I guess I already asked you that with the last question, but kind of more deeper. Right?
Deeper.
Yeah. And if you hear me like doing slurping sounds, because I'm drinking my Muddy Mocha from Muddy Waters.
Well, I do the illustrations, which involves, I work digitally on an app called Procreate on my iPad. And TJ will send me over. I don't know if you want me to go into the process yet, but this is the only way that I can think of, to go deeper into anything at the moment. TJ sends me his ideas for the script to start, and then we kind of talk about what's gonna stay in the final product. That being the text in the comics, the storyline of the pages of the comic, and then after that, he sends me little templates he wants me to illustrate, and I do that. We talk about them together, and I suppose I also have somewhat of a role in the in the future. I'll probably have somewhat of a role in the creation of the the compilation of the books themselves, the printing process and stuff like that. But last time we published the first volume, we published it through. Who published it exactly, TJ?
I did most of the work because I had to learn through the creative writing senior thesis process. So I did most of the work, but I also walked you through a lot of what KDP wanted for a comic book. So even though I did most of the publishing, you also had a hand in how it's formatted, the page numbers, also as well as a bit of the advertising as well.
Yeah. What I meant is that it was a publisher through the creative writing department, so I was kind of at your end of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. And how long have it's kind of a general question, but how long have you been drawing for, Brayden?
I guess since I was very young, but dedicatedly. I guess since maybe sophomore year of high school, which was at School of the Arts, where we all went.
Yeah.
I was a visual arts major, so obviously that's something I had to do for school, but it's also something I've always been very interested in.
Okay. All right. Now we're going to move on to the creator of the series. It's TJ Sniffin. So TJ, kind of just give us kind of what Brayden did, a more deeper dive into who you are and kind of when this whole project started to take formation.
That is a very interesting question, Bogart. So I am the creator, meaning that I am the lead writer. I came up with the story and the characters and pretty much everything that went into the actual story and characters. While at the same time, as Brayden mentioned, I'm also the storyboard artist. So I make the compositions of the panels, like how the book looks, and he uses that as a reference for his drawing. So basically how Dreamscape came about, if any of you are familiar with the video game series Persona, I'm a huge fan of those games, and I first conceptualized Dreamscape in late 2019, early 2020, the earliest prototype of the series. Around that time, Persona 5 Royal had come out in Japan and was on its way in the US March that year, And I remember I had created a story like, and I used to do this a lot when I was younger, but I would create stories like offshoots off of it. And then obviously I worked on it a lot before Royal because I was really excited for that game. But I held on to Dreamscape afterward and just started changing more and more details until eventually it just kind of evolved into its own story. And that was also the first time I've taken a writing project seriously enough to actually like see through its creation.
Okay, and you mentioned in particular that the Persona 5 video game was... You good, Braid?
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. You mentioned in particular that the Persona 5 video game was a huge inspiration. Was there any other like driving factor for Dreamscape? Like not even just within media itself, but just other aspects.
Well, I know you said kind of outside of media and other aspects, but the best way I can describe it is you don't see it as much with like the final product, but early on Dreamscape really was meant to be like a parody of the type of shows that I grew up watching, like, you know, more comedy shows. Growing up, this was also around the time a lot of like cartoons became serialized, so a decision to make it like a serialized story also came about through this aspect. So, you know, there are things about it like, you know, like a diverse cast, like, you know how 90s and 2000 shows had it. You had like kind of like this like idiot character syndrome, which make them all like lovable dorks. Of course, other shows I saw at the time, like, you know, like South Park, like a lot of Dreamscape development happened during like a South Park phase of mine. So the idea of like show creators like basing a city off of a place where they grew up. Honey Falls taking place in South Carolina is obviously because, you know, we're all from South Carolina. And it's just really like a collection of things that I grew up observing and applying to my own writing. So it was kind of like a compilation of my life in a way.
Okay, and would you say it's like probably your biggest like series that you're chasing up to date?
In terms of scope and scale, at the time it was. I have other series ideas in mind that technically are longer or have much of a bigger scope. What makes Dreamscape unique to me is that it was the first time I hadn't stepped up my game as a writer in terms of writing quality and scope and stakes. So even though it's not my longest series, or like even the one grandest in scale, I see it's like a transitionary phase in my writing, and so I think it hits like a good middle spot for like not being too self-contained, taking place within one small city, one small town, and like not like too grand to where there's like a doomsday type situation.
Okay. So earlier you described it as like a love letter to like, or a compilation, I should say, to what your childhood has been. So be it through cartoons or how you saw the world, like that's kind of what Dreamscape took the form of.
Yes, and one of the reasons why I chose high schoolers, well, I say one of because obviously the main one was based off Persona 5. One of the other reasons why I chose it was because I was actually in high school when I was developing it, and even when I released it, it was near the end of my senior year. There were a lot of things I noticed that, like, you know, like a lot of schools, a lot of schools, like, you know, the U.S. and South Carolina at least, have like these things that you do, and I think that adds a lot to like a relatability factor because a lot of my peers went through that. Like, you know, everybody had a field day. Everybody knows like certain types of kids. Everybody knows like schools would just have you doing like stupid stuff for like seemingly no reason. So I think adding to that relatability factor kind of adds like more to the charm of the series.
Okay. I know. So I was there early on when you were starting the idea. I know for you, you said the biggest style element to Dreamscape was kind of the more like cartoonish, kind of the Boondock style. / anime.
Yes.
Has that changed at all, or is that still what you want to stick more closely to throughout the development?
Well, I will say if I ever do get the privilege of making Dreamscape the animated series, I 100% want to stick to more of like the anime influence style, because that always has been a plan of the series. Granted, in the comics that has changed somewhat. Like, we still try to stick to that style. It's just that we had to make some changes because originally we had Brayden doing the backgrounds, and then we had someone else do the characters, and then some stuff came up, so we had Brayden kind of take over in all aspects of drawing.
Yo, big props to Brayden for that too, dude. He carried that art on his back.
Yeah.
Thank you. Wasn't a lot though. Keep going, TJ.
Yeah, so because I'm not sure how many people know of this, but the original Dreamscape comic had about a 4-month development period. We did not have that much time because it was for our school project, so we kind of had to pick like a style that's more comic inspired rather than like anime and manga style. Granted, that style may change throughout the development of the series, as we both get more experience, and we change it to how we see fit. But and of course, if Brayden wants to make a comment about that, he can. But yeah.
Yeah, well, I feel like the art style will definitely improve, because when I agreed to draw the characters as well as the backgrounds, mostly what I was drawing at that time and what I had always drawn and painted digitally. So anything I had experience in was just nothing to do with human anatomy at all, essentially.
Yeah, it's like
I like drawing bugs and stuff, and so I had to find a style that I could kind of easily manipulate, that wouldn't be too challenging time-wise.
Mm-hmm.
So as I get better, and sorry.
You okay, dude? You nearly collapsed.
As I get better, and as I get more experience with drawing people, the art style is going to improve as well as change, probably to accommodate what our vision actually is, rather than what it is kind of more constrained.
Mm-hmm. What made you attracted to TJ, either in regards to Dreamscape or with him?
Well, I like TJ. He's a very funny guy, and I think we probably first started talking about his writing projects because we would talk a lot at like lunches and stuff, and I was interested by his ideas because they're creative, and I like that he said himself, he decided to, like, what Dreamscape is I guess like a kind of slightly ironic examination of a kind of conventional thing, which I like, and it's obviously just a funny idea, and so we were friends obviously a long time before I agreed to help him work on this, and probably before he ever brought it up to me, but I agreed, like I said, because I like the idea, and I also had a lot of free time, and this would be and it certainly was a good experience, respecting my ability to work with deadlines and doing things artistically that I didn't do before.
Mm-hmm. Would you say it was like, did you find it challenging at all to work on the project? Or like, did you want that?
Well, I want it to be challenging. You want anything you do to be challenging. But I suppose what I found most challenging was probably maybe the workload, but I think more so, I mean, that was something I adopted myself. I think more so it was drawing, the people, because again, that's something I didn't have any experience in, essentially.
Yeah.
But after I found a way to do it well and consistently, that stopped being a challenge, and it was kind of just, after that point, it was looking to kind of see the most interesting things I could do with the backgrounds or with the style of some of like the monsters and stuff that we included. That was definitely the thing that I was most eager to do.
I will say that was probably my favorite part about reading the book was, or the comics, sorry, like seeing the way the backgrounds were animated, or like the monster designs in particular. I thought those were really fucking kick-ass, for lack of better words. But I think that was one of my personal favorite moments from the book, just how nicely the backgrounds were illustrated, kind of the more surrealist vibe you took to the Dreamscape, and I really thought that was like, you really shine in that department, especially.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. This is kind of like backpedaling on that, but what would you say that was your favorite part of drawing Dreamscape, or like what aspect did you find like drawing to be the most appealing?
Yeah, my favorite part of drawing was definitely doing the backgrounds and the monsters, particularly the backgrounds in the Dreamscape, because those are, you know, intended to be a kind of surreal, like you said, otherworldly place. It's essentially a kind of formalized dream, and so nothing that happens in it is supposed to make sense, and so you can kind of do whatever you want artistically. And I frankly feel that I didn't take that to its fullest extreme in some of the backgrounds, but maybe that's something that'll come in the future. But yeah, it's definitely the part I like the most. But the part I like the most to just work on the series in general is probably just working with TJ and the ideas and stuff. I just always find it fun to collaborate on the story beats and stuff like that.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. It's definitely a lot of fun collaborating with people, Brain especially, because to kind of reference the whole monster designs, a little bit of Dreamscape lore. I call them nightmares because very early on in the series I was trying to take like psychological terms and like apply it to like different things in the thing, then like, you know, the world building. But of course I had to be like, oh, nightmares. Just call them like a hustle energy. But I.
Oh, your phone number's Jeffrey Epstein, bro.
What? What?
Sorry, I'm putting a picture of Epstein on the video. I just gotta remember to edit that in. Sorry, TJ, keep going.
Okay. But like I said, part of the reason why I wanted to work with Brayden is because I saw he had like a lot of like this biological horror, and I found that like he could like, in like the nightmares are obviously meant to be like a very a creepy threat, and I thought he could like fulfill that to, you know, the fullest potential.
Yeah. So you said that the reason that you chose Brayden was for that aspect of like biological horror, like capturing the essence of what the nightmare designs kind of gave off.
Yes, and especially because like, and admittedly, this is why I really appreciate working with Brayden. When it comes to like dreams specifically, I forget how like weird they can be, because I try to lean as much as I can into the randomest aspect, but not too random to the point where like Dr. Miller and like, you know, the dream team can actually like work like feasibly. So while I have like ideas that are kind of more grounded in a sense, I feel like Brayden can offset that by just having like weird, just that weird aspect to it.
Why you got Jeffrey Epstein out?
Dude, Joe.
What do you mean chill? I want.
Joe.
Is that gonna be the cover?
Shh.
People think it's a true crime podcast.
Yeah. My next question is gonna be a little bit more general, but kind of tell me what Dreamscape is about, and don't go too heavy into the plot or the themes, because we'll be discussing that in the future episodes, as well as the characters.
And also, you know, no spoilers. That too.
Yeah.
Because I know both y'all know what happens. So, shh.
Okay.
Basically, Dreamscape it takes place in Hunley Falls, South Carolina, about 30 minutes from Greenville. For reference.
Is that a real place?
But it follows this psychologist named Dr. Miller. He finds out about this place called the Dreamscape, which is the world inside of people's dreams, and he had invented this device that allowed him to enter like his clients' dreams for therapy. It's not exactly said what happened, but like he has been disgraced. He's created like this genius invention, yet he has to be like this shady. He has to like work shady, like in the shadows, committing various crimes, and a lot of the intrigue is finding out what happened to this man.
And it's weird that he works at a high school, right?
A high school, yes.
It's
Like he's like Mr. Epstein over there.
yeah, he's like a predator.
Hey, chill on him, bro. Chill. Chill.
So, you mentioned Hunley Falls being in close proximity to Greenville. Could you kind of explain the setting itself? Or rather, sorry, let me rephrase that. Where would you say it's based on, apart from like Greenville?
If we're talking purely geographically, it would most likely be. Have you heard of a place called Pickens County?
No.
Brayden?
No, why don't you explain it for our viewers?
Exactly.
Okay, so Pickens County is a county in like the northwestern region of South Carolina, and it's kind of known for being like kind of in the middle of nowhere, which it gets its name from a city called Pickens. And outside of like Greenville, Spartanburg, like those are like the bigger cities in that region, it's not a very big city. Whether because they either have towns, they have cities, they have settlements. Hunley Falls is essentially like a town, so it's not like super tiny, but it's not exactly big either. Like you have a downtown area, you have like your suburbs, the poor people place, just stuff a small town would have.
Do you imagine the high school in it is like the only one there?
Yes, Loring High School is the only high school in Hunley Falls.
Okay. And I know talking with you about Dreamscape, a big point you like to bring up is there's a lot of inspiration from not necessarily like Charleston County in and of itself, but specifically the landmarks like right near where you live. Mm-hmm. For example, what is it? Hunley Park?
Hunley Park.
Yeah.
So that's because the city of Hunley Falls is I actually named it after my elementary school, which is Hunley Park Elementary School, or at least like the Hunley part of it. I switched out park for falls because I felt falls sounded more town-like, because think like Gravity Falls. So because of that, I had to add the fact that there is a waterfall in the city, because you can't name it Hunley Falls if there is no waterfall there.
So going on to like a general timeline of the series, how long do you plan on making it run for? Or like, just give me like a general length / timeline of the series.
General length. Like I said, generally it's not. I don't like. Originally, it was going to be a lot longer in my mind. Maybe the animated series is going to run longer than the comics would, but essentially I've trimmed down a lot of it like recently, kind of, because originally there was a lot of filler in it, and I just condensed like like the arcs that I liked that had the character moments that I needed, and making sure that the main plot didn't run redundant. So I'm thinking about it in terms of runs. So I think at least the first run is going to see like, we introduce to all the Dream Team characters, and it ends on it's going to end on like a Christmas special. I'm thinking that run is going to run no longer than about, I would like to say 10-ish volumes as like a rough estimate. And keep in mind, volume 1 was as short as it was because we didn't have that much time to work on it for it being a school project. So future volumes will be longer than volume 1. So that's for the original part. And then there's like 2 or 3 other parts or comic book runs after that. So we'll just kind of go at it one by one.
Something that's maybe worth mentioning is that part of what the condensing is that some stuff that's more fit for television, for animation, isn't fit for the comic, style wise, format wise. So I think that will contribute to the difference in I guess you could say runtime, as in like how many issues y'all have published and what those look like plot wise.
Yes, and Yes, and ultimately, like, I am a comedy writer, and one thing that a lot of like the original TV scripts have is there was a lot of jokes based on like vocal delivery and timing, which obviously those are things I have to cut or change for the comic books because there is no voice acting and there is no like people read at a different pace, so I have to like rely on jokes that fit for the comic medium, as well as realizing that padding it out for like TV, since we're not working with episodes and I don't want to like make Brayden a slave, that's why I condensed a lot of it, because in reality a lot of it kind of was just filler between like the main stuff. So for the comics I want to focus more on the main stuff, and if I have some leeway for like a hypothetical animated series, then I can do that.
And do you plan, not to get too spoilery, but like, do you plan any continuations of the series, like not directly named like Dreamscape or anything like that, like sequel series, prequels, or anything like that?
To give away as little as possible, I have had 2 spin-off ideas come from Dreamscape. One is a prequel, kind of explaining the story of Dr. Miller, and then the other is like an anthology series that are just like one shots of like the side characters. So unlike the prequel series, which is explicitly set before Dreamscape, the anthology series can take place like it can follow anybody in the timeline and like at any point in the timeline. So it's very nebulous.
Okay. Do you have any questions for me? Let's see.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I feel like. Oh, I see. Thank you. I thought you were trying to press a button or something. I was going to tell you there's no buttons on there. I feel like you should do the same thing that we did. Maybe we can stitch it into like the start. So I'll ask you, tell us a bit about yourself artistically when when you started making music and why.
Okay. My name is. Should I keep doing it? No, I'll just say. So my name is Giovanni, otherwise known as Trepidatious Bogart. I produce mostly hip-hop music. I have to take these headphones off. Holy shit. So I produce mostly hip-hop music, and I've been doing so since the age of like 13, 14. I'm also the main producer for I hope to be the main producer for the Dreamscape series, and I consult TJ on a lot of like, or I take advice from TJ on like what vibe specifically he goes for in his series, and I kind of try to match that with the music that I make. As for when I got involved with the project, to the most official extent, mostly just like we did like, or TJ did a voiceover, or not a voiceover, what was it? Can you explain that, TJ? Sorry.
Basically it was a comic dub of one of the chapters to advertise my senior thesis when the book had first been officially released, and Giovanni did the background track for that video.
Yeah, so that was probably like my largest involvement from the Dreamscape series so far. Was mostly making the music for that. I consulted him on like what type of music he wanted, like where it should go, and just general stuff like that. But I've always it's been interesting to hear like how Dreamscape has been developed as a series recently, ever since I've known TJ. So yeah, then that's who I am.
Yeah, and I guess my question for you, and it's kind of similar to how like if you don't want to give too much away, you don't have to, but just kind of like what's some general like track ideas that you have for like, I don't know, maybe like a theme song or like a battle theme, anything that comes to mind for you.
For me, so the way I've always handled trying to make music for the Dreamscape series is trying to it's a very Fallout New Vegas based system where it's all about the vibes, if they all understand kind of what that means. So in relations to the characters themselves, I typically like to center my music around what the character's style is. So not to be like, and I don't mean it to be like stereotypical or anything like that, but For one of the characters, Carlos, who has a lot of the quote-unquote Latin style to him, I typically like to involve more Latin samples into the hip-hop production, so it kind of follows sampling bossa nova songs, samba songs, and then kind of making them a little bit more groovy and a little bit more jumpy in the songs themselves. But yeah, it's kind of what I go for. As for tracks not related to them, I take a lot of inspiration from Samurai Champloo for the songs that I make for Dreamscape, and artists like Jay Dilla or Pete Rock.
Nice.
How would you say Swedish rapper Blade influences your music production?
Blade has always played such a huge centripetal role in my music production. What's the song?
What's your top 5 Blade?
Number 5 has to be Extol. And number 4 has to be Come to Daddy, Pappy's Mix.
Okay.
Number 3 has to be Window Licker, as voted in by fans.
Now I didn't realize that he'd done so many covers of Aphex Twin songs.
Yes. Well, clearly you're not as tapped in as I am.
I must not be as drained as you are. That's true.
Number 2, God's Plan by
God's Plan by Blade.
And number 1, Eminem's that one freestyle that Eminem did, where he said, "That's an awfully hot coffee pot."
Coffee pot. Should I drop it on Donald Trump? Probably not. That's a solid one.
That's probably my favorite Blade song. Yeah.
I agree. Our top 5 is like identical, actually. That's surprising.
Okay. But yeah, like I said in the beginning of the podcast, we're gonna try and push these out regularly throughout the whole summer that we're gonna be able to, and then maybe some more as well over like Zoom calls or stuff like that. But over the next couple of episodes, we'll be focusing more deeply on the plot, the actual more nitty-gritty of the creative process, the characters, and other stuff. So thank you so much for watching.
Have a good night.
Have a good day.
Thank you so much for watching.